This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, folks. The time being 4:45, I'd like to call this meeting of November 30th, 2023 to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a review of a few minutes, 11:02. Everybody read these, or? Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Ruggles second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are on to minutes of November 9th. I have one correction. It's not enough to hold up the minutes for a new correction, and it's just under the donation. It's SOLO, SOLO. It's not SOLACE, it's SOLO. It's not enough to hold up the minutes, though. Anyone? Make a motion, we accept the minutes. That one small correction.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. November 16th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of November 16th, 2023 as written. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? No, hearing no discussion. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. Excellent job on the minutes. November 22nd,
I make a motion to accept the minutes of November 22nd, 2023 as written.
Second. Any discussion? This was a swearing in, was very quick. Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention? Okay. Motion passes. Next, we have, make a motion that we accept a $100 donation from Cody Christensen and Barbara Frederick to the Tilton Senior Center.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion, we accept a $4,000 grant from the State of New Hampshire Homeland Security and Emergency Management for Local Emergency Operations Plan.
Second. Chessman.
Any discussion? Jeannie, do you want to explain what that was?
So the town of applied for a grant from Homeland Security and Emergency Management to do a local emergency operations plan, which was due to be updated. That was completed, and I filed the paperwork to receive the reimbursement, and we did get that. So
Thank you, Jeannie.
you're welcome.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have Tim Pearson, Finance Director for the budget, and I'm assuming it says tax rate. Should we get excited about this? Okay.
Tim.
We need a microphone. Okay, good. Thank you.
Rolled up prepared. So,
Do we have a budget in here?
yes, you do. You have a budget in your book, but I have the tax rate information here.
Oh,
Great.
hold on.
Hold on. Tax rate in hand.
Hot off the press.
I
Woo.
was going to say, because last night there was not as much enthusiasm.
Should we be sitting down on this?
Considerable amount of time today,
Thank you, sir.
trying to get to
Tim,
where we
do
need
you
to
got
get
one
to. So,
Do you have one for me?
I don't,
Okay.
as a matter of fact. Let me see.
Thank you.
I can
I'm good.
share with Scott.
I'm good.
Yeah, we can share for now. Yes.
I apologize.
Here.
I usually
You
make
can
more
pass
than
it.
enough. So, as you know, we've been held up, so to speak, by the Tilton Northfield Water District because of the special meeting that they had on Tuesday night, and been hounding DRA for some time now, along with the town of Northfield, as we've been feeling it's been really unfair to be held up by a village district when, that if they needed to send out a tax bill, they could have done so at their expense, even if it has to come from the town. But DRA views this as all village districts have to have their information into them because they, per RSA, they have the ability to tax their base, even though most of them are self-supporting, like the water districts, but they have that capability. So because they had the special meeting, DRA had to hold us off. And this afternoon, we were able to go through the remaining portions that I have to go through with DRA. And what you have before you is a modified rate, as you'll see, using a suggested fund balance of $150,000. So by using $150,000, there's a 2.75% reduction in the municipal portion, which is the town portion of the rate. The county is going up 13%. Local education was up 3.6%. State education was up considerably, but that's because last year there was I forget what they called it, but there was a special legislative credit, if you will, for state school. So that amounted to I believe it was 80 cents across the board for all taxes, for all municipalities. And then the fire district is going up 4.31%. So the town can use more than the 150,000. Right now, we're running about 450,000 ahead of plan, but I do believe our expenses are going to be a little higher this month. And I am still concerned about how it's all going to finish up for the year. So I'm thinking that the 150 is a conservative number. We're also going to want to have quite a bit of powder for next year. And the reason is we're looking at a very different tax environment next year. So because of the reval, right now our ratio is looking like it's going to be 55.8%. So if you take your current assessed value, divide it by 55.8%, that gives you a picture of what DRA thinks your house is going to be worth this next year.
Divided by 55%.
Right. So you take, 100,000 divided by 55.8, and you're going to be at what, almost 200,000, I suppose, something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood. So in any event, and that reflects in large part the residential environment. A lot of residential property values have gone up considerably. As you're aware, commercial properties, particularly larger commercial properties, haven't had the same experience in terms of appreciation. Smaller commercial properties, more like, the maybe more mom and pop type commercial properties, have seen appreciation. But what I'm concerned about is an anomaly that happened a few years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but and maybe it was our last reval, but as the residential properties went up in terms of valuation, they went up at a much higher rate than commercial properties. And what that effectively does is it shifts that portion of the commercial burden, or I shouldn't say burden, but the tax that commercial properties were paying, it shifts it onto the greater equalized value portion, which is the residential properties.
Right.
So what in effect happens is, and what that amount is, I don't know, but I think probably after talking to your assessor regarding, individual circumstances of late, you've probably heard a little bit about this. So that's the concern I have going into next year, that you're going to need to probably have a significant amount of money to reduce the tax rate next year, because people are going to kind of get a double whammy. They're going to get their increase in their tax, but they're also going to see
Shift in
the
burden.
property values so high, and that it's going to cost them more. So that's why I'm not recommending a higher fund balance use this year, because I think you really need to have it in your back pocket for next year. And
Yep.
the last time this happened, there were a lot of upset people.
A
I
lot.
don't know if you'll recall.
Yes, I do.
I do.
I'm sure you all heard from them. And I don't think that was anywhere near the impact that this next year is going to have. Because residential property values didn't double in the last time out. They have almost doubled this time. So in any case, that's why I'm recommending the 150,000. It's already been factored into the $3.8 million tax effort for the municipality. That can be adjusted. You can use any amount you like, but what that shows is an overall 6% increase in the rate itself, from $19.29 last year to $20.45. Keeping in mind that roughly 80 cents of that was related to state tax forgiveness, if you will, on state school tax forgiveness. So I can finalize the rate in the morning or later this evening, and we can get the ball rolling.
We still have to come in to sign a warrant, don't we?
And I would recommend that that when the warrant is ready, that we'll send out an email. Jeannie or I'll send out an email asking you to come in to sign it. So then the tax collector can get the bills out as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, because of the timing, there's no way to have these bills due in December. They will push out into January because of the amount of days that are required for the due date. So what that means is that there could be some people impacted by their escrow accounts. I do think that if we're able to get our tax bills out early next week, that we'll have sufficient funds to make all of our commitments for the month. So, but that's still
It still doesn't help all of the people that had escrows or anything like that, because they're not going to be drawing down on your banks anytime soon, correct?
Well,
Am I
it
right?
depends
bank.
on many banks use large tax processors
Got it.
for as a service, and for those there's a couple of big companies that do this, and we get about $1.9 million in tax revenue from these escrow processors. But that still leaves a lot out there that are either paid by individuals or paid by smaller banks, local banks, that sort of thing. So it is a concern. It could affect some people, but as long as the bills are out early enough and people get them in their mail soon enough, hopefully they'll be able to take action on them.
Got it.
So my recommendation would be $150,000 of fund balance. I've also got, which you don't see here, but there's an overlay amount of $30,000, which should be sufficient, but it is also something you could adjust, but it's related to abatement expense. It's really the overlay for abatement expense. And that's in keeping with where we are year to date for true abatements.
So do you want us to make a motion so that you can get the ball rolling on this one, Tim?
I would, and the only caveat I would say is that maybe to use fund balance up to an amount required to set a tax rate of $20.46 or less. And the reason for that is DRA has a peculiar rounding that they do, maybe $20.47 or less, just in case. But that should be sufficient. It should be in all likelihood will turn out to be these two numbers. I'm fairly confident of that. So,
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to keep it up, not to exceed $20.47.
Right.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Sorry,
There
Joe.
you go.
All right. The other thing that you see on here is a list of encumbrances. So this doesn't mean that these all have to come from encumbrance, but I wanted to just touch on this for a minute before we get into the budget. I've mentioned before that there's money in the in one of the PD funds when included with the $35,000 here for the encumbrance that should be sufficient to order a new Tahoe. I know the chief was working on getting a quote. I haven't seen it yet, but that's the kind of the placeholder number that we have right now. And these are things we'll probably be talking about on December 14th, but I just wanted to reintroduce them here again, and particularly as I talk about some of the IT things. In Public Works, that would be for tools for the department, as well as a Connex box. So if you recall, Public Works Director needed a place to store the bales once they're done, or other such things for the recycling center. And then where it says recycling, and Jeannie may be going through this, but there was some, basically you're aware of the, we needed money for the baler, which the board had approved. And there were a few other small items. So that's what that amounted to, the 8279. And then in terms of IT items, and this is somewhat going into the IT budget, but if you'll permit me for a minute, the plan has been, currently we have 2 servers at Town Hall, 2 servers at the police department. The police department servers are somewhat newer, and we have one in particular old server here in Town Hall that has been problematic, as I've told you from time to time. We've had some issues with it over the years, and it's really long in the tooth. So I have been able to order a very fast, very good used server for about $1,300 that is on its way now, that will be intended to replace either one of the servers at the PD or the server here. And I want to order a second one. These are HP Gen 10 blade servers. So these aren't the latest and greatest. They're not brand new, but they're fantastic values. And also I've got a fantastic deal on the HP Enterprise SAS drives for them. The SSD drive, enterprise drives, are still very expensive, but the SAS drives are an incredible value right now. So it is the fastest non-SSD drive you can get for these servers, and they're very reliable, and HP makes a fantastic product. So I've completed an order for one of this, the used server and the drives. And then I would like to purchase the second server and the drive. So that's going to be about $2,500. I was able to split up the first one, but so that's what that $4,880 is. So I would anticipate spending that, but that second server is going to exceed my budget for this year, for this calendar year, by a little bit in the hardware line. The other components, the server install, that's going to be required. We have to go through, in fact, we're going to be starting an upgrade process over at the PD. So they've got all their most current law packages with some recent changes that were made at the state regarding, I believe it was felonies. And so all those packages will be available to them this next week. But part of the entire move to help them be more self-sufficient is required to provide them with more administrative access for certain areas of their systems. So it really does require a rebuild for one of the servers, and we're changing the topology, if you will, of the servers slightly. So where we had the two servers backing themselves up repeatedly, while it was a good plan, we're going to a hot swap server. So essentially, everything is replicated instead of half being replicated here, half being replicated here, and either one could take over. One's the primary and one's the hot swap. So what it allows us to do is to make use of the most current, fastest hardware on the primary server, and the hot swap server is going to be the best of the remaining servers that we have. So in other words, we're going to retain two of our best servers that we have currently as the backups. So if we do lose one of our newer servers and it craps out on us, we'll have the hot swap backup to go. It just won't be as fast. So that's why we're changing that methodology. Right now, pretty much all four of the servers, the two pairs, are pretty evenly paired in terms of performance. So that's why we were changing this, because these new ones are going to be so much faster. It doesn't make sense to split it up the way we're doing now. So just to give you a little bit of background on that, I know it's probably more than you need to know or want to know, but there is a methodology to this, and there's a whole plan, and we're doing it very inexpensively compared to what we would have to do to go out and purchase and install and configure brand new servers. This also means that we're going to be upgrading our software licenses. We're not going to be going to the most current. We'll be one level back in all the operating system software licenses, but again, at a significant savings. So in any event, so those first two items, the servers and server install, are going to be really important. The other two items I just want to bring to your attention. We had talked about, and the board had discussed and heard feedback on using a content management system. Basically, if you go to other towns, you see Civic Plus or you see Revise, and I have sat through demos of the Revise, and I'm very familiar with the Civic Plus, having used it to some degree. Both of them are about the same price for the first year license. This is more than one of the quotes right here, this $5,000. So initially, you'd be looking at about a $4,000 start, $4,000 to $5,000 to start and implement a package, and then about $1,500 to $2,000 on an annual basis. One is less expensive than the other for annual license fees, and that would be in perpetuity as long as you have the site. There are some technical issues I'm looking into in terms of how we host our own tax cards so that we save about $2,500 a year, not having to pay Avatar to do that. So I just have to make sure that we're able to maintain the same type of activity with that. And I'm not asking you to encumber either of these two bottom items, but the other one I wanted to mention, there is some end of year. In the software business, the end of year is like every end of month in the car business, but it's the end of year. So there may be some pricing things that the board might want to take advantage of, and I'll certainly bring it to your attention on the 14th.
I had a question regarding the website software and that.
Yeah.
So once our data, is that stored on their site? So
Yes.
would it be like what we had with a previous vendor that wouldn't
That's
allow
correct.
us to take it back though?
Yes and no. So yes, it is hosted by the company. And so what that does for you, the advantage is that you're not dependent upon your own circumstances. If you lose power or if some other event, that's going to be up as long as wherever they're located isn't experiencing the same sort of outage. But there are numerous ways. There are backups and downloads built into both of them that you can, you have the capability of, you don't, it's not
So
a,
if we're done, we say, we don't like dealing with you guys anymore, you went way too expensive.
right.
Are they going to hold our data sausage to it that we can't get
What-
back without paying
well,
some exorbitant fee?
So no, what they would, what we would not get would be the design elements, the UI, the user interface. We wouldn't get anything like that. What we would have is all of our documents
In a
all of
useful format?
in the same format that we put it in. So
Okay.
most of the documents, so you have two types of documents in these types of things. You have a place where an authorized user can log in and they can write something up. So like when you see on our main page, there's a new announcement about something. So that sort of thing is available where they log in, they type something up, and it gets posted. And then you have the other type where it's more static. So somebody's looking for a permit application, or they're looking for a tax card, or they're looking for something else. Those are all going to be in PDF format. And those will either have been, FTP'd into it by us or loaded into it by us, so that we would have the source anyway, to begin with. So there really wouldn't be a lot, I would think, that we
Yeah,
would
we can
risk
back up
losing.
all that
Right.
data on our own and
Right.
have it on the service.
Only if we at some point in time expand beyond that to some other product they may have that that does a feature like what that other software did. That would be the time we'd have to be more concerned. But in terms of just replacing sort of what we have, it wouldn't that shouldn't be a concern. So in any event, and the software, the second from the bottom software package that I've noted there, that's a high number, but that is a package that I believe would be a suitable replacement for MuniSmart, and would bring us much more current, probably give a lot more utility in terms of how we do payroll, how we do payables, how we do our financials in general. So I am currently on the hunt for something because I want to make sure that, that's something that we keep on the front burner. Because not only is it important for how we process things internally, but also as more people are trained in the finance area, it's going to be really key to having something that's going to be lasting. And I'm very familiar with conversions, data conversions, setting up systems. I spent a lifetime doing that sort of thing. So in the software business, so it would be good to be looking at things like this sooner than later. So in any event, having said that, I hope I left myself a copy of the budget. And
Do you need a vote on the encumbrance?
well, I would like at least a consensus on the server and server install. And I would wait for I think by the 14th, we'll have a quote for the Tahoe. And then I think we'll also have some better numbers, for over at DPW as well. I do know the server prices, it should not exceed $5,000 for that expense. And then, but I would ask for that server and then server install, so a total of $12,000 encumbered.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded for no more than $12,000 for server and server install to encumber. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. All right, and
I can share.
uh,
May look for that.
but that's That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So in your binders, you'll have a copy of the budget. Somehow I didn't end up.
Enough for you or Jeannie.
I don't know.
We printed sufficient number. They just didn't make it up here. That's all right.
Tim has decided
Are
to
you
cut
sure
back
we
on
don't all
printing.
have,
You
I
should
was
have.
going to encumber that.
You should
cost.
have these, they say, in the bottom
Toward the
right, they
back.
say 11/30/23.
Toward the back.
Maybe somebody's got two.
wait a minute, it says
no,
11:30.
It's gonna look like this. You see this
I don't
one,
have a
Kathy?
budget. I just have your financial summary as of 30.
In your binder?
Yeah, that's where I got this.
Ah.
I have my budget from
That's financial
11/16.
summary, too. That's all.
Let's have a financial summary.
Yeah, I just have a
Not me,
financial summary.
mine had a, just
Oh,
go
wait a minute, I
down,
didn't go far enough. Hold on
go
a minute.
further in the,
Nope, it's 10:05.
this one is
11:02,
11/8.
11:08.
All right.
We don't have 11:30.
I got 11/14.
If you would permit me a few minutes, I'll go down and I'll make sure that we all have the proper copy. It'd only take me about 5 to 10 minutes.
All right, we'll move on to something else.
11/2.
All right, we have the financial summary, but, okay, so there are two items in the to be signed that looks like needs to either be directed to the chair to sign. I think it's the breeze line in Health Trust.
Health Trust.
We need a, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. So do we need to authorize you, Pat, for
Yeah.
for Health Trust and for,
I guess, yeah. If you
Breeze
want
line.
me to do it, or we could authorize you, it doesn't matter.
I'm good. I'll make a motion to authorize the board chair to sign on the Breeze Line contract and the Health Trust contract as well.
Second.
A motion has been made and second to authorize the chair for Health Trust and Breeze Line contracts. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Motion passes. Okay,
Yeah, I just wanted to mention again that Joe had mentioned at one of the last meetings about getting the $10,000 from
Breeze Line.
Breeze Line. And at first they pushed back a little bit, but they did give it to us.
thank you, and thank you, Jeannie,
you.
for
Thank you,
pushing
Jeannie.
that.
Those Christmas
Good work,
presents.
Joe.
Well, the
$10,000.
thing is that anybody that we signed coming into town has to match the first contract that we signed. And that included a $10,000 payout. So, and if somebody else comes in, they're subject to the same thing.
If I remember correctly, weren't you part of negotiating that contract?
Yeah, I was the town rep for that one, but that was Donahue, Tucker, and Chiandella who got that for us. And it's a special thing because we didn't have a cable franchise up to that point. and they knew they did wrong, so they made it right. Yay. Gift that keeps on
Part of the
giving.
health trust, Gene?
What's that?
Is this part of the health trust
That's the section 125, and that has 5 lines on it, should have 5 lines on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
the other thing while we're waiting for Tim is that the town clerk, tax collector wanted me to speak out tonight that there are new, I don't know if everybody can see it, new dump stickers that everybody needs to come in and get. They're actually will be in effect on February 1st next year. They're nice bright orange, so they're available downstairs in the town clerk tax collector's office. Everybody see that nice, pretty bright orange?
February?
Well, you can get them now, but they're in
Oh,
effect
effective.
on effective February 1st.
Didn't
So-
have to bring up
2024.
5 of them, did you?
Right?
I said, you didn't have to bring up 5 of them, did you?
I was lucky to get this one. Would you like that one? Go ahead, take it. I
So,
don't go to the dump that
If I
often.
could
Pass that
say
down to
something about
Catherine.
that. So what is the requirement for them to get a recycling dump sticker?
They have to be a resident of the town of Tilton.
So, and what do they need to do that produce?
You have to ask the town clerk tax collector that because there's different variants. They could be a resident, you could be an apartment dweller, you don't need to be a voting.
So
Right.
the vehicle registered in the town that's used? So wouldn't it be proper to have them produce a registration in order to get
some
that?
don't have registration.
No, some don't have vehicles. So some have their neighbors bring them, so.
Thank you.
An electric bill proves
Typically,
residency.
the town clerk's office has several ways of people proving residency, like light bills, a statement from their landlord, property tax bill. Doesn't necessarily show residency, but that with, other things.
So the
It's
question,
complex,
yeah.
it's very
So
complex down
the
there.
question I have is that it's very easy for these to change hands to somebody
That's
that
right.
shouldn't be. And would there be, and I brought this up before, a method to write something on here, whether it's a vehicle registration or a address or something on here? Because you can write it with a Sharpie, you peel it back like so, and then you just take a Sharpie when they produce the thing and you write on there. And then that way it'll be identified to that person who got it, and it wouldn't be traded to a contractor or somebody from another town.
The other question is, somebody who has multiple vehicles. And so I
Pick up
have,
5 of them.
I have 3, 4,
Yeah, I've got 4.
Mm.
I've got
5.
4.
I've got
I have
4.
6 vehicles registered in my name.
Hmm.
Does that mean I can get 6 dump stickers?
Yes, but if the registration for each one was
You
shown,
would have to go
they
on
would-
that vehicle.
Right.
they
but
would
I-
go and write it in with a Sharpie onto there,
Right.
the plate number, and then that way, it
I
was,
think that's really up to we can't answer for the town clerk on that one.
well, we're going to be issuing these out
Mhm.
beginning right away.
But
So
again-
now would be the time to make a decision.
Well,
on
this
that.
is
Is
our
it,
authority, not the town clerk.
Yeah.
But you have a point, because right now we don't. I could get 6 of these. Who knows what I do with them?
all right, so we'll put it on next meeting's agenda to talk about it.
Yeah, and
Let's find out what the
and
town
discuss it
clerk
and hold off.
Find out
requires
what their criteria is to hand it out.
for this particular
Correct.
item.
And then we could talk about it make it a part of the agenda.
Yeah,
Great.
so we'll not issue them till after.
Geez, I
We
thought
make
that
a
was going to be
decision.
a minute discussion, Joe, and then look at what happened.
We'll look at the cost,
Garbage. I get it.
the cost.
All right,
of-
budget,
Okay.
which is on our agenda.
Right, so you all have a copy of the budget, and I'm anticipating there'll still be some changes, many changes to this budget. And I'll go through some of the reasons. But basically, first of all, I had talked to the board early on about making some changes in the the PD wage lines to better break out collective bargaining versus non-collective bargaining. Unfortunately, with recent circumstances, time is just not permitted to do that properly and reflect it properly. So what you have before you is how you've typically seen it, and it should provide you with with the ability to discern the budgeted wages from last year to this year more easily. I would still like to pursue that, but unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to be feasible this year to implement that in the budget this year. So in any event, while the cover shows an overall 7% increase or $396,000, the two areas of increase that you'll see are in public works and police. And again, these are primarily wage related. In public works, that's adding personnel for the recycling center. And if we were to go through the detail of this, the public works director did reduce from 2 new employees to 1 in this budget. So this reflects one new employee. Where are we here? So in the administrative budget, there were no significant changes as yet. And the reduction that you see is primarily because we don't have the additional encumbrances from last year that were brought forward from 22 into 23 to account for the repairs that were needed at Town Hall. So that's what accounts for that reduction. In the town clerk tax collector's office and in other areas of the budget, one of the primary drivers of increases is the number of elections this next year. So we're looking at 4 elections in 2024. This budget does not include additional money for a new voting machine. As far as I understand, there's no pricing known at this point, or at least the last time I talked to the town clerk tax collector. I know that both the moderator and the town clerk are are discussing, these sorts of things. So if and when we have a need to purchase something, I'm sure that can be looked at, and I would think maybe there'll be some grant money for something like that anyway. But these 4 elections, they affect a number of different areas of the budget. Everywhere from the election preparation, the moderators' costs, the supervisors of the checklist, election and registration costs, even postage and mailers and that sort of thing. So it kind of goes throughout. But anyway, bless you. So that's pretty much the net increases to the administrative and town clerk tax collector budget. The merits in this budget are put in at 3%, and that is also what the town clerk tax collector had requested, as you'll see as a note on the top of page 4 underneath the salary for town clerk tax collector. In the finance budget, the primary driver there is the short-term interest. So if you recall, in 2022, we enjoyed a 1% tax anticipation note rate, which was a long way away right now. In 23, we were able to lock in November of 22 at a lower rate of 3.75%, which seemed difficult at the time, but again, was a good move at the time. And now we're faced with right now an estimated rate of 5.25% for 24, and we will need to enter into a tax anticipation note in January. I'm working on the components that are required by the bank for that borrowing currently, and as you recall, the authorization that you provided in the form of a motion stated up to that percentage. So while I'd like to be optimistic or hopeful it's going to lower, I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. But we also have the commitment that we can renegotiate that during the year with the bank, should there be a significant change in rates. So, and that is a tax exempt rate. So in any event, that's what caused the significant increase in short-term interest there. As you'll see when you look at our debt, the principal increased, but the interest on long-term bonds decreased slightly. You do see these variances from year to year. Sometimes if you look at the amortization schedules, there are changes. We are actually going to see a slight reduction because of a renegotiation of one of the bond bank notes. And that is in our amortization, but that won't appear for another year or two. And then in information technology, probably the biggest areas here, and we'll need to talk a little bit about this. So there's an increase in IT services, and again, that's for additional consultant hours, which I had talked to the board about prior to this. And that's largely at the PD, but not exclusively at the PD. In addition, you'll notice that we continue to have additional costs for security and upgrades. One thing that is coming down the pike, and it's been talked about for years, but I think it is now going to be coming to fruition, is the money that Belknap County Sheriff is going to receive to consolidate IMC licenses, which is the software that the police department uses, and get all the surrounding towns on a hub and spoke sort of network, if you will. So in fact, I think Northfield is slated to be the first connecting into Belknap County. Even though they're in Merrimack, they dispatch through Belknap. And what this means is that they would still retain, or we, once the time comes, would still retain your own server, and you would still have your own local data there, but you would be, anything you'd be entering into the system would be through a central database. So it would be protected for us, but when they're dispatching, there's absolutely no rekeying whatsoever, or if they're out in the cars entering something, there's only one place the data is going to appear. It's not, there's no a repetition of data, I should say, but there is redundancy, and there is the ability to store that locally too. But we wouldn't be entering in two different places. The advantage it appears as though there's a financial advantage to this, because the county will be, first of all, the county has enough money to pay for all the conversion and bring everything over from all the component towns, and or so I've been told. And then at the same time, the licenses that will eventually be charged to the towns will be at a discounted price, because the county will have more buying power with all these, their dispatch towns. So as opposed to us, purchasing or licensing from IMC directly, or the company that provides it, we would be pooled together with the other member towns that are dispatched through Belknap. So this was talked about several years ago, if you remember.
Yep.
And it came up when we were discussing IMC Mobile. The justification was there for IMC Mobile in the near term, and it has been working for them. But by moving to the county, I think we'll see a reduction in expense. We'll also see how do I put this? We will see less reliance on our internal servers, for uptime operating ability if we're term servered into the sheriff's department. So and really all of this, what really matters is having, the right kind of connection to the county. And I think it's going to be inevitable, even if we want to keep our own system. I think at some point in time, if everyone else is on that, and Northfield will be first. We'll see how that works. Maybe after 5 or 6 of them are on, and how that's working. We'll just have to see. I have not been aware of the current funding, but this has been in the works for some time, and it was somewhere in the, I believe, $800,000 range to do this whole project, and they did get money for the conversions. So there are some advantages there. So I mentioned that because it could mean that our software licenses for the PD could go down some. It's estimated maybe in the 20% range, maybe 25%. It's not a huge savings, but it is some savings just in the licenses alone.
So the benefit to us is through the licensing part. Does that do anything to reduce our need for dispatchers here in Tilton?
That would be a question for the chief. I really don't know. The financial aspect of the license is one thing. I do think that if everybody is working off a single system, there are other advantages to that too. And if you think about a company that has multiple locations and each one is an island, that's far less efficient than if you've got, everybody tied in together and using the same thing. So I would have to imagine there would be operational efficiencies. How that looks in terms of dispatch or coverage or anything else, that would not be my area. So, and that'd be a good question for the chief. So in any event, those are the highlights within the information technology area. I am hoping that as we renew our fiber agreement or look to our fiber agreement, that we'll be able to get a more competitive pricing as we now have more competition in the area. So that's something that's going to be coming up within the next 6 months, and I'll be bringing that forward. But in here, it's based on the current rates that we have. In the land use department, this is an area that the board may want to add to, considering the fact that there seem to, and of course I'm no expert at this, but having listened to a number of your meetings, particularly the one where you had other departments in, it sounds like there may be a need for additional help in that department, whether that's additional hours or how that manifests itself, I'm not sure. But other than that, the land use office, there's hardly any change within this. We had some additional expenses with the vehicle this year. So that was up somewhat for next year, but other than that, everything is pretty much steady. So that's and that may be a discussion that you want to have with the town administrator or land use coordinator, but just based on what I had heard from people saying that they thought there was more help needed in that area. Within the health and welfare, I think this may also be an opportunity. You're going to have a vacancy in the health officer in the near term, and having that salary before that position is filled, perhaps the board will look at how either that could be combined or restructured some, or look at recommendations from the current health officer as to how she thinks that should be factored or if it's working. But that may be another area, only because that's it's a good time when there's a change like that to take a look and see what might work. The welfare general assistance, the welfare director has not changed the amount. She's nervous about the amount, I can tell you, but she's sticking with it. And basically feels as though, and you'll see year to date, she spent about $15,600. And
The year's not over yet.
the year's not over, and it is getting colder, but she's stuck to that number.
Yeah.
Within Public Works, so again, I believe I mentioned that in the beginning that this, so at the bottom of page 6, you'll see that the increase in the crew wages is related specifically to the addition of one person to assist with the recycling center.
Mhm.
Let's see, there was another change here. I did put a note in here under equipment rental that in the 10-year equipment plan, we did add in a used utility bucket truck. So if you were to go on the website and look at the equipment plan, you'll see that it shows as unapproved, but that it's a proposed item. So, and as you know, each year, and I believe the director spoke to you about, the eventual need for a piece of equipment like that, based on the type of activities that they do.
And so where do you put it here in the budget? You pointed here under rentals?
I only, I put the note
Oh,
under
rental
rental
for, I see it.
on page 7,
Utility. Yep, I
only
get it.
because that's where we pay for the rentals for those currently.
So
and
in the 10-year plan, instead of putting out this amount of money in a 10-year plan, if we bought that with this would
Well, and
basically go away.
yeah, and that could be a, right, it's not going to appear in the operating budget, but, that could be an item, if something came up, perhaps an encumbrance, perhaps
I was just going to
ARPA,
ask that question to you.
there could be other, sources for something like that. So,
What is in the 10-year plan offhand, what's the total price of that?
I think he was in the low 40s. I think it was like 45, 48, somewhere in there, was what he was thinking.
We did the encumbrances on your list here. Did we have that room for that?
I had not put it on there, but I'll make a note of it and I'll speak to the director about it. Originally, I had it on a plan like this. But of course, we were still trying to figure out how the end of year was going to look. We're waiting on what sort of hiring we were going to be doing
Right.
before the end of year. So now that's, being more solidified. It'll be much easier, say on the 14th to really have a much clearer picture. And time will permit me to do the proper analysis for the end of year and the encumbrances. I've got a good 30,000 foot view. I'd like to have a 3,000 foot view.
I get it.
So in any event, that's mentioned there. And the reason why, just to remind the board and for those listening online, is that while the rental doesn't look like it's very much, but if you have to rent it more than one time,
Yeah.
then the costs add up pretty quickly.
Which we do.
And then you have the downtime waiting for it and so on and so forth. Of course, on the flip side of that, you have the maintenance of the equipment and the ongoing operating costs. And as it so happened, I was slowed up recently in Franklin behind a Franklin bucket truck as they were putting up wreaths along their poles in the downtown. So in any event, let's see, what else was there? The board had made some recommendations while the director was here. I believe we had made some of those changes. I think one was gas diesel, which I think we had reduced some from where it was. I'd have to check that. And I'll have to go back and make sure that those things were captured for you. But those were not items that were voted on by the board at the time. They were discussed. Everything else, the one that I did not catch that is in here is the sidewalk construction, and I'll remove that, and that will go to the capital reserve fund. That's on page 8, and that shows the $29,999. I do recall that the board
Okay, right.
wanted to move that to the
Put
capital
it
reserve.
into the capital
correct?
reserve,
Yes.
right?
So keep in mind also that that once the current paving project is done, we are pretty much going to be depleted in that fund. So between the addition of, that project, which was sort of moved up in the cycle. So next year's money will be pretty much whatever we put in there is going to be what we have as a balance. Less the second coat that we have to do on the current paving. So there's not going to be a tremendous amount of money in that. The director is aware of that. That was part of the plan. And
Unless we put it in the warrant article.
unless you put
Add it to the
additional
warrant,
money
right.
in the warrant article, that's correct. Other than that, we've been through the sanitation, recycling, processing before. These are the contracts. The tipping fees, as you know, are going up again in 24, and I've listed out all the tipping fees through 2029 on here that are part of the Concord Solid Waste Regional Solid Waste contract with Wheelabrator, and that's just the way it is. As you recall, for our haulers, there are also listed in here as the expense, which is 100% reimbursed through the hauler, that the board approved a methodology of setting our rates each year so that we're never going to be behind this tipping fee. And if you recall, it adds a set percentage to each one of them each year. So, and that's all on autopilot right now. Outside of the recycling area, and again, we're in the second year of our 5-year contract with Pinard, now Casella. And then in the police department, that note is incorrect about the open positions. There are 4.5 open positions currently. So I know the chief is planning to speak to you about one such change. So I'll just note that there may be some type of slight reduction in the PD budget. Outside of that, everything is pretty much the same as you saw the last time. The reductions in electricity, the staffing levels are now based on the additional, the changes in personnel. So we hired an attorney prosecutor this last year, which was different from our prior cost structure. We've hired replacement officers that are different from our prior cost structure. So some have been positive, some have been negative, but on the whole, I would say he's able to staff his department at an equitable rate overall. So it's somewhat balanced out. See what else. Again, one of the items that was discussed at length with the chief was the body cameras, taser equipment, grant opportunities, and reviewing what we need from the individual company and needing to split out because they provide us with both the body cameras and with the taser weapons. Those have to be split in order to pursue the grant opportunity. So hopefully these numbers won't change much at the bottom of page 9 in the equipment maintenance, repair, and tech line, 4210-340. I'm hopeful that will be somewhat the same. And then you can also see that we've now completed all the weapons expense changes from the prior year. That's in your payables tonight, as a matter of fact. And I believe the other area that we were to look at and to possibly reduce was gasoline, diesel. So if in this discussion the board wants to make changes to these, I would say at the PD it would be more likely, but keeping in mind that as the department has more officers and they're doing more driving and more patrolling, they're going to use more fuel. I think, to some degree, the current expense is somewhat of an anomaly, and it is in arrears. We're about to get our invoice December 1st for November, so you don't see any November costs in here. So I would, they run about $1,300 to $2,000 a month for the PD for fuel. Outside of that, and if we move on to culture and recreation, so the Parks Commission expense, this is still an area of concern to me regarding the janitorial costs. They have not budgeted enough to make use of our current contract. And to my knowledge, we have not received any responses.
It hasn't been posted on the website. I was looking for it.
So were any sent?
Well, we usually put anything that's out for current bid.
Yeah.
We put that on the website. I haven't seen it put up there yet.
Okay. Well, in any event, we haven't received anything, so that may be the reason why we hadn't received anything.
So what is the cost for the park, Riverfront Park
Um,
for a year?
So the total cost would have been $39.15. So if you look on page 10 in bold, underneath Park Commission expenses, you'll see that it's $2,015 short. Bottom of page 10.
Is that, so was that what, 2023, or is that the new proposed contract?
New proposed contract.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say it would be that or less. But so that, and that's,
We can change that amount.
yeah, and that's why you have those black marks there, just to draw attention to it. On the last, on page 11, you've got the culture events, the Tilton Events Committee, Old Home Day, Memorial Day, Park Cemetery, and summer concerts.
Did the budget committee not vote on those? Okay.
Well,
John,
we did on some of them.
I didn't.
We voted on Old Home Day,
You did,
Park
okay.
Cemetery,
Did you
All
approve
Memorial?
those?
Hall Memorial.
you voted on Hall Memorial?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so we don't have that. Can we have that on the 14th?
Yeah, in fact, let me just see here.
And we had voted on all the outside agency,
oh,
well, not Lakes Region
Hall
Planning.
Memorial was voted at 135,886. So it looks as though they were kept at a flat rate,
Level funded.
level funded from 23.
All right, John has his hand up.
No, I noticed that it seems to be that there's quite a few people from the Hall Memorial
Yeah.
Library on, and I had gotten a call that they wanted to go and have the opportunity to discuss with us their budget.
I got it. I also got a call too, so
Yeah.
but
Okay.
we're not finished yet.
But we'll get to them.
Right.
So in any event, yes. In fact, the budget committee is wanting to get a copy of this, the draft budget. So I'll be sure that I now see Old Home Day was approved at $3,000 by the budget committee. Park Cemetery was approved at $6,000. And youth assistance. Okay, I do have youth assistance here. I have community action, Franklin Visiting Nurses, Recreation Council or the Pines, and then they also approved a portion of Twin Rivers food pantry request. So the three that you were missing was the level fund on Hall Memorial Library, the $3,000 for Old Home Day, and the $6,000 for Park Cemetery. So, and then you'll see the other items that they did not recommend which was Greater Lakes Child Advocacy Center, CASA, and Lakes Region Mental Health Center. So given the fact that you have people, do you want to discuss any of those items with them first before you go through and make some changes to, say, the fuel lines and the capital reserve fund for the sidewalks?
I,
Hope
Yeah,
you don't
we
think
got
we're gonna
about a half.
finalize this budget tonight.
I don't. It'll be draft 2.
We got about a half hour for total, so let's, we'll open it up for discussion for online. One at a time, please. State your name.
I see Brittany has her hand raised.
Brittany? Okay, go
Hello.
ahead.
Hello.
So I am Brittany Shanahan. I am the library director at Hall Memorial Library. And in talking with our trustees, we would like the opportunity to present our budget directly to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, if we can have a snippet presentation of your, whatever you presented to the budget, because we're limited for time. Is that
Absolutely.
possible? Okay.
Or if you wanted a
A
separate
major,
meeting.
no, well, you could do that too, but the highlights of what you asked for in an increase would be sufficient as well.
Okay. We have seen a growth of, we've doubled our programming attendance this year over last year. And so we asked for a $1,900 increase in our programming budget line. And then we also asked for an increase in our staff wages because we lose a lot of our staff to better paying jobs, better paying library jobs in the area. And for example, one of our staff members who has a master's degree makes $14.20 an hour.
Wow. That's less than McDonald's.
Yes. And then the children's librarian who's full-time makes $15.21 an hour.
Okay. Does this account for the $18,000 that you want to increase in wages? That's primarily what you want to increase, is for
Yes,
wages?
wages is the majority of that increase to get them up to what similar libraries have,
And
livable wages. Because we've only asked for 12% over the last decade as an increase for our entire budget. And inflation has actually gone up 34% in that time. So we're just trying to even out where our budget has fallen behind over the past decade.
Got it. All right, board, does anybody have any questions for Brittany? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, this would be my first time taking a good look at the library budget. I didn't know if we could get some more information, have the opportunity to look at what was presented, the video of it to the budget committee. I think they went over the budget committee.
Say again?
The budget committee met with the library.
Yes.
So, I'd like to be able to see that and what their whole budget is, or perhaps schedule them to come in. We have some time left, right?
Well, we have
Not tonight, but.
we have only one other week before the end of the year, and that would be the 14th.
Yeah,
The
the
22nd.
21st.
But the budget-
The 21st, but if you want to do it in between the cookie contest, that'd be fine with me. That'd be
Can
great.
you bring some cookies?
Definitely make some cookies.
We
When's
do.
the last day for the public hearing?
What is it?
It should be in your book.
Yeah, it's in this.
February.
February 2nd. I usually say
It's usually
Groundhog
February
Day.
2.
Yeah, it's a little
So
after
the
that, I think.
February,
So we have time.
February 16th is the last day to post the budget hearing,
Last day to hold at least one budget hearing is February 16th.
right? So
And
y- we would love to have you come in and present it. I think that's what the consensus of the Board of Selectmen is. So I can get back to you and look at the agenda for the 14th. I
Okay.
think it's pretty packed, if not the 21st, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that,
The other option to that is, I mean, we certainly will welcome you to present to us, and that gets out obviously to the public. The other option is also to attend you having 2 public hearings for budget? Or just one?
Depends.
We're going to schedule one.
So they have at least 1 public hearing for the budget,
We don't usually need
which
to.
Okay.
you can come and present to the budget and ask them to appeal their decision at the budget public hearing and present an argument to that. And then
Okay.
if in fact that doesn't work, town meeting is a great sounding board for an appeal. At that point, you can have a resident make a motion to amend the line item for Hall Memorial and ask
Okay.
them to make a motion in a second to amend that. And Catherine's going to call me out on that.
No. I was just saying that she doesn't have to wait until that February date, the public hearing date.
Mhm.
She could ask to readdress that budget to the budget committee.
well, the other
Time in the next, month or whenever.
the other thing is they could go and present it to the selectmen to get their recommendation too. So
But our recommendation, though, John, is not what goes to the town meeting.
no,
The recommendation that,
but we have to put something in there.
yeah, it doesn't, what goes to town meeting is the budget committee's recommendation. So if there's a chance
I
to ask
understand.
for a rehearing with the budget committee, that's the
Yeah.
venue that they should
So
take first.
what?
The selectmen's
that's-
is a default budget.
Yes, it is. But after doing the budget for 24 years, I understand the
Well, I
process
get
pretty
it.
good, unfortunately.
But I'm
But
trying
I
to
think-
explain it to other
So,
people
and
too.
what I'm saying is we do put a number in there. What number, what's the basis of the number that we're going to put in there?
Right.
And if they can present something to us and provide us with the information, sometimes our number may exactly match the budget committee, or sometimes it may not. And then
We still have to get up and at town meeting, you're not
you know, I
gonna,
understand.
but they're not gonna understand this, John. I'm not saying it to you. I know you understand it. I get it. But even though it's a default budget and our number differs from the budget committee number, somebody still has to get up and say, I make a motion, because it's a bottom line budget. The number is, $6 million, and it's somehow tied in Hall Memorials in that little pocket, and nobody sees it unless somebody says, whoa, here's a difference here.
The question I'm asking is, I would like some information from them before I come up with our number. When would that be given to me?
Didn't we get those packets?
We got those packets, and we also were invited to have a dual meeting with the budget committee when they came in. So, I mean, we're inviting them to come either the 14th or the 21st. So,
But having
Yeah.
said
You
that, so
want them
that
to come in-
information should be readily available to
Yeah.
you.
right.
So on the 14th or the 21st at the Selectmen meeting?
I can
should
tell
have
you we have a
copies of
packed,
that.
we'll try to get them on the 14th, but I can tell you it's a packed agenda so far, and we can try. We'll be here to midnight, but we'll try.
It's in their best interest to ask if they can go before the budget committee again.
Okay, Brittany, did you get that information that you can ask to go before the budget committee again? And
Yes.
if you do, can you please let us know and maybe the selectmen can show up at that meeting?
Okay,
All right.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the cameras.
I'm hoping that that.
So I look at the
doesn't
screen,
take
I'm
that
just like,
quickly.
yeah.
I got it.
This can be. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I thought we got the
All right.
packets. That's Selectmen.
Okay, so, look, she clicked off before I got, but you can hear me. So let us
Oh,
know okay, Brittany, just let us know if you can reconnect with the budget committee. Let us know a time and a date, and then I will get back to you, or Jeannie, get back to you. Oh, no, it will be me. On a time, either the 14th or the 21st, to come back to speak with us, to give you a presentation with us. Got
okay,
it?
that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say something online about the budget so far?
Hi, this is Nathan Langione from 8 Winter Street.
Hi, Nate.
And I just wanted to say that given that public libraries are one of the few places people are allowed to exist without the expectation of spending money, and given the current climate of rising interest and rising costs, it's definitely a service that we want to make sure is available to the public as more people will need it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nate. Does anybody else before I close the public session? Okey doke. All right, Tim and the board, we're back to
Okay.
talking.
So,
Could
Oh, go
are we
ahead.
allowed to talk outside agencies right now?
We would like to talk about the,
Anything?
yeah.
So I once again will express my concern. Again, support, but concern over what we are looking at for the Pines Community Center budgeting and Tilton's contribution. Once again, when I crunched and went through the numbers, the documented programming where they document what town folks are from. This year, it dropped from Tilton participation at 29% from last year down to 23% for this year. And they're asking for an increase as well. I get concerned in terms of our dollar cost value, so to speak, of the usage there, and if we are appropriately using the taxpayer money for a place that is great and does really good things. But if we've only got 23% usage on the events that are documented, and I know they have other events where they don't track who is coming from what town, those numbers was about 2,000 when you take away the Northfield elections. So even if we're at 50% on those, it was 1,000 people or 1,000 bodies going through. So I just am really, really concerned that the spending is not balanced between the towns, and one town is getting a lot more, obviously getting a lot more from the programming, et cetera, there. And honestly, I would see that in our own budget, if we were to look and fund it appropriately or drop back a little bit, that money could be used elsewhere, whether it's Park Cemetery, whether it's Senior Center, whether it's Hall Memorial Library, et cetera. So just something for us to really look at and consider. And I do think the budget committee needs to consider it. I know they've approved the 75,000, but we've now bumped up another $2,750 for programming that we're using less and less and less of over the last 3, 4, 5 years.
I brought that up for discussion last night at the budget committee, so we did talk about that. And the feeling was, it, and he's right, it's year after year. This isn't something new. But the feeling was that, is it fair of us to say, okay, you need to ask more of Northfield this year? Or should we tell them this year that next year we're looking at you to ask more money of Northfield to make that more equitable instead of lopsided?
But am I right by saying this? Because correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, I should say, that in the past, there have been a few years where we've, done our due diligence and appropriated half the budget for them, and then Northfield defaulted by a few $1,000s each time. They didn't. It was like $9,000 or $10,000 that they defaulted and said after the budget was created.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's not only that there are more people, but they're not paying their fair share either.
There was money to, if you remember, during the COVID time as well, when there was money that went to the Pines, and then Northfield reduced the amount they were contributing by the amount that
That's
the
right.
Pines received as well.
I didn't
That's
know that.
Yes, they did.
Wow.
So
Okay. So the budget committee's still looking at that?
No, the vote last night was what you see here.
Wow. Okay. Whew. We're voting next week on our budget after we get all the answers.
14th,
We are?
on the 14th.
on the 14th, not next week.
I mean, on the 14th, I meant, not next week. I keep saying I meant next meeting. I said that to
Right.
Jeannie earlier, next week. It was like a panic.
No.
Next meeting. Are we voting next meeting on
I
or
would,
did you want this tonight?
no, not tonight. No, I think,
I just was trying to
yeah.
get Catherine
No,
excited.
no, this is, no, you've got time. You've got time. You've got time. And I'm sure there'll be changes anyway, so.
Okay.
And, keep in mind the drivers to any of these budgets, by and large, you're looking at greater than 60% of this budget is personnel and personnel related costs. That's what really drives your budget. So, but would you like to make any current changes? I think the administrative budget is pretty straightforward. Even with the reduction, we don't have any options in terms of workers' comp, property liability, unemployment. That's based on our rating. As you'll see, there were some reductions and there was an increase. And again, that's based on our claims experience. Lakes Region Mutual Fire Aid, you see the increase there. This is down at the bottom of page 3. I'm sort of working backwards, but by and large, there are not a lot of significant changes other than when you look at the election cycle costs. Election registration is going up 376%. From $2,100 budgeted this last year to $10,000. There were some changes in terms of health insurance and employee changes. Also, some tax-based items. Other than that, there really isn't, there's really not a lot of new in here for the administrative budget. So, as you look through that, I think there are some areas in this budget that you may want to make some changes to now so that when I bring this back to you, those are reflected. In the town clerk tax collector area, I don't think there's anything, again, that's material change that the board would need to take action on. Postage has increased in terms of the cost of postage and the amount of items that we send. Supplies have gone up. And then other than that, again, it's election registration preparation, again, going up 342% because of the number of elections versus last year. So I would think between the administrative, town clerk, tax collector, and finance budgets, including the finance long-term debt, and that there's little to change there at this time. Information technology, I can certainly go through that in more detail with you in terms of those increases.
Aren't we gonna do this again on the 14th?
Right. Well, what I'm saying is there's really not a lot within the administrative budget,
Okay.
town clerk, tax collector.
What things should we be looking at now?
Well, I think what you have before you to really evaluate may not be in a public session. It might be as there are changes in personnel, you
Right.
may want to look at changes in budget.
Right.
So that's something to consider. And that was my reason for saying 60% of this budget is your
I
personnel
understand
related
that.
costs.
I have an IT question.
Uh-oh.
Great.
It's just kind of a general question.
No, I'm
She
just
has a
kidding.
So
smartphone now.
what you
I know.
showed us
No, flip
on the
phone,
bottom of the
right.
tax rate page,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
possibility of encumbering these monies for IT.
Yes.
Are these
Un-
items also included in this IT budget, or are
No.
these extras?
Extra. Keep in mind that there is, that we do have money that was earmarked for IT from the fiber vendors that came through town. So there will be $20,000 available to that. I do feel that at any point in time, you sort of have to have a certain amount of money
Just in case.
just in case.
Just in case.
I've had components blow out of these things. As you know, when we moved up here, we lost power supplies. We've had things like this happen. Hopefully with the new equipment, that won't.
With
No.
that extra $10,000 or whatever we're getting, can we use that to like buy some of these servers?
Yes. So that is, it is earmarked for what they consider network fees.
Mhm.
And I have worked that in. But what I'm also saying is that it's important to sort of have some money for emergencies, as we don't have a separate capital reserve fund for technology or anything like that.
Mhm.
By having some of that money set aside in the event of a catastrophic failure, it would be really important
And
that we can access
roll
it
that
immediately.
money over year to
Oh, yeah,
year.
yeah, it doesn't, because of the nature of how it's received, for a specific purpose, it goes into a grants and donations fund for that specific purpose. So anytime that we receive a grant, those are set aside, in a special fund, so they do not lapse from year to year. Those are project funds.
That would be, we'd have to create that fund and the terms for the fund, because we
Well-
don't have one now.
Well, there is an internal fund for any of these donations. When we receive donations and you're receiving them publicly, when they're for a specific purpose, they are set aside separate from our operating budget, operating expenses, because
I didn't know if the terms of the contracts require that be
No.
separate, or it just be accounted for separately.
Yes,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about then. Okay.
yeah.
It's an
We're talking
either-or
same language.
question.
All right, do we have any other questions for Tim? Because we want to allot some time to Jeannie.
Okay, all right. So I will go ahead and I will make some reductions to the fuel line based on in the PD, and I will move the sidewalk money to the capital reserve, and I'll also double check the bucket truck,
Yes.
and hopefully have some estimates that we can act on at the meeting of the 14th for some of the encumbrances, some of the other encumbrances, the Tahoe, Conex box, things of that sort.
And then you'll also let us know about the warrant.
Yes, in fact, I am going to finalize the tax rate when I go downstairs. I can do that online. And tomorrow morning, once that's reviewed by the DRA and signed off by the commissioner, we'll have our official rate. And at that point, we can contact Avatar for the warrant. And
I just gave her a heads up that it's coming, so she's aware.
Do we
So-
have to hold a meeting to sign the warrant, or can we do a sign now? Yeah, okay, good.
You've done it that way before,
Uh,
haven't you?
Yeah, I
You
think
don't have to
so.
have a vote to sign the warrant.
You don't need
just
a
either
vote.
sign it or you don't.
Right.
Right, so we could put it into sign now. I think we've
So
done it.
hopefully we'll have all that tomorrow, and if everything works out, that maybe by Monday, Tuesday, town clerk, tax collectors can be working on
Sure.
the bills, and they can get out early next week.
Hopefully they didn't schedule days off that time.
We shall see.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
shall see.
great. Well,
Thanks,
thanks
Tim.
very
I
much.
appreciate your work on this,
Thank you.
as usual.
The
Thank
most
you.
wonderful time of the year.
Oh, leave that up there, please. Yeah. Leave it up there. Yeah. You're gonna stay there?
Hmm?
So next up is Jeannie Forrester. Yep. We have a resignation in place from Jeannie. Effective December 31st, 2023. I've asked her to come and speak with the board.
I don't, I don't really have anything to say. I think at this point, if what you're asking for is an exit interview, I don't think right now is the appropriate time to do it. Um,
Well, I did ask for a non-public with you and you did not want that, so
No, there would be no reason to have a non-public.
as an exit interview, there would be.
No, unless it was my intent to um, impugn somebody's reputation, which is not something I intend to do.
Okay, so there's not anything that we can do to change your mind?
No, I think it's time for me to move on.
Okay. Nothing else that we can do except regretfully accept your resignation then.
Thank you.
Sorry to see you leave. Okay, moving on. Anybody from the public that needs to speak to us before we go into a non-public session? Okay,
Hi, this is Nate from 8 Winter Street again. I just had a question about the Pines. So currently, we're paying for more than half the budget, but using 25% of the services. Is that correct?
No.
23%.
It's technically it's 23% of what I qualify as documented activities, documented programming, which is when they do their check-ins and they know which town the participants are from. So this year it's 20, or this past year it was 23% of the documented quote unquote programming that they do, 23% Tilton participants. There's other programming that they put on, whether it's cookouts, whether there's just different social gatherings that they have where they don't check people in from whichever municipality they're from. And so, those do take place. We want to take those into consideration, obviously, when we budget. But it's just, Nate, we just need to, in my opinion, we just need to take a look as we move forward in terms of the dollar cost analysis for us and how much people from our municipality are using the programming there, et cetera, and what that should mean for us in terms of our fiscal expenditures.
Thank you,
Got it.
Scott. Appreciate it.
Because it seems to me that at the current levels, we could probably fund a similar program or programming at a location in Tilton that is more accessible to Tilton residents, potentially on one of the bus service lines, and it may reach more people at a lower cost. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the case, because you would have to have, say, a recreation director, and a recreation director is not going to be inexpensive.
Building.
Yeah, you're going to have a site and a building, and then you're going to have the expenses of all the equipment, the upkeep, et cetera, and you're going to look. I actually did a little research in a couple of other small towns around. You're going to look at expenditures that are going to be north of about $110,000 to $120,000 in total.
More than that.
Yeah.
If you put in insurance and everything
Correct.
else.
Yeah,
right?
that's not including insurance, et cetera.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Nate. All right. The time being 6:30. I make a motion to move into non-public per RSA 91A:32A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of a public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, 1, has the right to a public meeting, 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. Second.
Ruggles, second.
A second by Selectman Ruggles. Roll call vote.
Jessamine, yes.
Ruggles, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Constantino, yes.
This conference will now be recorded.
I'll be recorded. You said that for how many years?
I did.
Turn your
Okay.
mic on. Turn your mic on. Mic's on.
Make a motion to seal the minutes of the
Thank you.
November 30th, 2023 non-public session because disclosure would adversely affect the reputation of a person other than a member of the board permanently.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At this time, I would like to entertain new business. Joe,
Motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
did you have something?
Oh, is somebody
Okay.
here? Does-
Jesse and W.
Before you have that,
Anybody waiting?
does somebody need to talk to the board? Hello? No? Okay. Joe,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye.